What's up, everybody? Got the golden hour, and I've had a decent amount of requests just for an update on how the trailer's holding up in the winter. And now's a really good time to kind of touch base and talk about a couple of those things. So I'm gonna flip this around, and while we got a little bit of beautiful daylight, I'm gonna give you an update on the winter prep. All right, so first and foremost, the real cheap tarp solution, I gotta admit, has worked just fine. Now that could be due to a couple of reasons. I don't believe we've had a terribly harsh winter for Steamboat standards. I mean, yes, it's snowed quite a bit, but only in like 2 or 3 mega dumps. And it hasn't really been consistent this year, so maybe that would change things if so. However, at its height, I mean, I had snow all the way over the top. It was starting to collect and like hold right there. So if you look at my neighbor's camper right here, it was kind of looking like that on the front. And the tarp hasn't gone anywhere. Everything stayed intact. The only addition that I did make at certain juncture, I went and took this rope tie and I just connected it from there over the top down to the other side. And I felt like, I don't know, at the time I felt like the ice was gonna pull this in and it was just all gonna drop down under. But once the ice layer formed around the bottom, nothing really moved at all. The tape did come undone a little bit. However, I don't know if that was me or the weather. I mean, I did a little bit of damage shoveling this thing out the other day. And so, you know, I could have taken the shovel to it and pulled some of that apart, but I'm pretty impressed for, you know, all things considered, the cheap cost and how well it has kept the snow out from underneath my rig. So I haven't had any issues whatsoever. Obviously everyone around camp's got different things going on. I just recently decided to go ahead and dig this out because we're going to be leaving in a couple of weeks. And so I'm hoping that this will melt around the base just in time for me to pull out of here. So you can see that's my power cord, which is firmly under ice all the way over there. Man, it's a pretty sunset tonight. So yeah, the funniest thing that's going on is that I'm gonna bounce before all this snow melts. And there is a nice like graveyard of Shiloh poos down in there. Just one layer after the other of ice-laden poos. So that's gonna be fun for somebody. But yeah, overall, in terms of the tarp holding up, it's middle of February, coming up on end of February, and I feel like it's been fine. So, short of the work it took to dig out, I don't think it could have been any less painless, or cheap for that matter. Next time that I do it, I will definitely figure something better out for this corner situation, because it doesn't like, well, first of all, that end of the rope is like super jimmy rigged on the inside, connected to my couch. So I'd probably find a different way to fasten there. And then I think it would make sense next time to do something like this around all 4 corners so that it's more suspended from the top, as opposed to using the taut line and trying to wrench it so tight that it holds together, if that makes sense. So those are a couple of things that I would change next time around. Let's just go over here and take a different angle. So another thing I didn't expect prior to winter camping, but that I validated now. Boy, it is, when it melts, man, it is just so flippin' muddy. It's really muddy. So that adds an element with the dog for sure. But honestly, it adds an element with yourself. There is just a habit and a routine that I've gotten into that involves certain kinds of shoes and taking things on and off, and you just have to adhere to it. There's no luxury of not paying attention to the ice and mud and snow. So I'm also going to do a follow-up on the inside of the camper in terms of heating, the heaters that I used, and stuff like that. So if you're interested, check in the description below. I'm going to put a link to that video coming up. What's up, guys? So I was gonna make a separate video about the heaters, but I think I'm just gonna tag it in to this same video. So this is 2 different days. A couple days ago I did the shot of the outside of the camper, and then I was talking about the heaters that I use. That's been the #1 question everyone's asked, is like, are you dying? Are you freezing down by the river? And no, I'm really not. It's not been bad at all. And I think it would surprise a lot of people. So I'm gonna flip it around. We're gonna do another walkthrough around the base of the camper because we are about to leave in 2 days. So whole nother video about that. But let's focus on the winter prep and how that turned out. We've had another snowstorm since that last shot that I took at the beginning of the video. So let's take a peek. So as you can see, I mean, we've got a good, I don't know, 3 feet, 4 feet of snow that's pushed up on the bank, but that really hasn't affected the camper as much as I thought. So even with the last snow, which was another foot, it's only been 2 days and it's already melted back down far enough that, well, you can see it kind of weighed down the top here. So here's the one area of improvement that I think I can change that I touched on in the earlier video is when it dumps like this and it got real heavy on that tarp, the one problem I had was just pulling this down too far. So what I came up with in the interim, and it worked well enough, but next time it'll be a more pro job, but I just took a carabiner, hooked it on the grommet on the corner, and then I ran it up the top to support that a little bit better. So that's really the only negative or downside. Also, access to the propane was definitely difficult when it was completely covered up in snow, and that might be something that I would change up next time. Other than that, it has really worked and served its purpose really well. The snow kind of stacked up on the sides. There's ice down at the bottom. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the bigger problem in trying to get the camper out the next couple days. This tarp is literally like frozen into the ground. So, my buddy that got out of here, he was literally hauling, I know, bud, just hang tight. He was hauling hot water from the laundry room, pouring it around the edge of his camper, trying to get it unfrozen. So we have 2 days of decent weather, like over 35, I think. And then it's gonna snow again on Wednesday, and then we're supposed to head out on Thursday. So hopefully between all of that, I don't really think it's gonna be an issue on the roads. I think if anything, it might be a little bit of a pain in the ass just undoing the tarp and getting this thing out. But yeah, I mean, all things considered, it's worked pretty well. So I tore it apart the other day, trying to get into the propane, and I also wanted to see if how much ice was down there. I don't think you can really see on camera, but there's a good 2 or 3 inches of ice at the base. Now let's talk about heaters real quick. So obviously the primary way that cold leaks into the camper is through the windows, and that's something I identified pretty quickly. I did not do anything to them. I mean, I've straight up had the same window situations that I started with. Let me take my shoes off. So here's something that you gotta pay attention to with vigilance, is like the shoe situation and tracking in wet and snow and ice. You can't do it. Otherwise your feet will constantly be freezing. So this is the dry zone. There's no feet coming in. Now, heater wise, here's what I settled on. The electric heater was working bomb, like back in September and November. It was definitely the way to go. This thing I just got through work, and it's pretty simple. It's got a thermostat control, temperature plus or minus, so if you need to crank it up, you can. It's on 68 is what I keep it on. And then, yeah, so because it's got a thermostat, it just self-regulates and kicks itself on and off. And that's been great. Here's what I learned about electric heating. I feel like you need to see my face for this. So the thing about the electric space heater, and I didn't want to believe it, but I'm pretty sure it's true. The bad thing, let me get my selfie stick, man. You guys got to get my full mug. I don't want no cheap iPhone shots. So here's what I learned about space heaters. While they are super clutch and they don't use as much electricity as you would think, like I'm on a metered connection here, and I have not once even come remotely close to my power usage. So the thing about it is it's incredibly dry. Like it blows forced dry air through that thing 24/7. That can be a big challenge in terms of staying healthy. Because what I know about nutrition is like there's got to be a tandem balance between minerals and hydration. And if you lose that, your immune system just becomes weakened, and the possibility of that static electricity building up on you is it's going to break down your immune system and make you more susceptible to getting ill. Now, my theory goes, number one, I let go of all my herbs over the winter. Stupid. I know better than that, but whatever. I did. And I don't know if it was just working in retail and handling money and just running into classic flu, cold type situations, or if it actually had something to do with the heater. But I can tell you that I was waking up feeling very run down. Like my nasals were just so dry. And all the time, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm by the river. There's all this snow around me. It's clearly wet in Steamboat. But I was just so freaking dry. And the drier I got, I felt myself hit like a point break where I was just like, my eyes were drying out. And I thought, I can't do the space heater anymore. Like, oh shit, maybe that's why I got so violently ill. Like it just finally broke me down to a point where my body couldn't defend itself. So it's probably a combination of things, but I know it certainly didn't help. And then I gotta go handle Shiloh. 1 second. We're working on it, bro. We're trying to move somewhere where we can get some land so you can run like a wild hyena. But yeah, back to the heater situation. So that guy, super drying me out. It proved to be pretty burdensome to my health. So what I did is I went and I got one of these heaters. This is a, what is it? Pelonis. It's like a radiator type heater, and it just emits a low, warmth all around. Now what I found was I can only put this thing on low and also run the space heater at the same time. Any more than that and it blows the fuse, and then nothing works. So a couple times in the middle of the night, I was running the heaters when it was freezing balls out, and it basically kicked the fuse in the middle of the night. I woke up freezing. So the way around that was to lower the wattage being used down to low, and then set that thing at about 68. And between the two, they would oscillate, right? So it'll get warm, this thing will kick itself off, that one stays on 24/7, and it's just like a little tandem balance. So neither one has to work too hard, and by doing that, it alternates the power draw, and it managed to keep the whole thing alive. So that's the deal on heaters. I would really recommend the tandem approach, especially if you've got a larger vehicle, just because the space heaters, they can be a big suck. Like, I say that it doesn't use a lot of power, but that's just because I don't have other electronics running. I don't have TV or any other devices really. I charge my phone and I heat the camper and I run a coffee maker. That's it. So yeah, there you go. There's the kind of update on staying warm and the RV winter prep in terms of the tarp, holding the snow out the bottom. All in all, I was completely thrilled with the situation. How much money it costs, the effectiveness. Camper stayed relatively warm all winter, with the one exception of, when I blew the fuses and the heaters themselves going out, and I was still surprised that it was, 35 degrees in the camper when it was like 4 outside. So, my biggest recommendations are to really pay attention to your layers and your wardrobe. That, against your own body's adaptation to the cold, is probably your best overall defense. Secondly, be cautious with space heaters. They can be super clutch in the way of safety, in the sense that you don't have propane running in a small space. Depending on what kind, they can or cannot be a power draw, but the whole drying out thing, be careful with that in the long term. It's just not good for anybody to be in a dried out incubator. And then number 3 is basically try the idea of alternating heat sources, whether that is propane and electric together or just a variety of things. That's really worked well for me, and it has been awesome. So they both defend against different types of cold. I've noticed that the radiator, it gives this like warmth amongst the moisture in the air, if that makes sense. I don't even know how to describe that, but it's a it's a more soft heat, and it doesn't dry things out as much. That being said, when it gets really, really, really cold, the forced air and the dry heat tends to push the cold out a lot faster. So working together has been a good solution. And then number one and most important has got to be the proper socks and shoes. Adapt to your environment. So it's been awesome. If you got any questions, put them below in the comments. Thank you for subscribing. We're going to get to that 4,000 watch hours, whatever it is YouTube wants to be a pro channel. We're on our way. So thank you again. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.